वेलकम टू वी लर्न में आपका स्वागत है. Topic for today's discussion is advertising management and sales promotion. We are covering session 8, that is advertising budget. Topics to be covered are introduction, budgeting information needed, targeted consumer, media mix, objective of the campaign, typical spending pattern, budgeting methods, the role of experimentation, and decision support system. When we talk about the advertising budget, so advertising budget for long-term or short-term purposes, it is considered as a very delicate art and simultaneously a very professional exercise which needs a detailed data and careful analysis. So what happens, all finance departments, they have just one clear and simple brief mandate: healthy return on investment, or what the advertising industry calls the bang for buck. So advertising budget, it needs to have a clear goal, that is expenditure should show a proportionate increase in the sales. So there are various theories and practices when somebody is talking about setting up advertising budget. And the gut feeling in all these cases is certainly is not one of them in today's market conditions. Some brands, they have too much spent on it and show meager results, especially highly competitive FMCG products. While on the other hand, even too small a budget and they keep on selling steadily in healthy amount, whatever. When we talk about budgeting information, uh, it is basically maximum profit and minimum expenditure. So the advertising budgets, it is a very visible entity and which is the culmination of many issues and objectives. The company has produced a product of or service and now it wants to sell. It wants to sell that product at a maximum profit with a minimum expenditure. So there exists the company's mission and image of itself, its stated goals in businesses, and the market share, its long term and short term objectives, all of which come under the territory of advertising. And thus, the budget is also required for that. When we talk about the targeted consumers, so when we talk about the targeted consumers, it takes into account the demographic, the psychographic, the purchasing pattern, and who influence the most and what is the influences the most. So since India, which is a country of such a huge population, even the poorest of the person, he buys some of the manufactured product, right? So when we talk, it is a target for some kind of advertising or some kind of communication, promotional communication. So the target profile has to be defined very clearly from the very beginning. This is the kind of a profile which is unalterable and varies according to the market conditions. Here the competitors' advertising is a thrust. Companies' budget is at the bottom line. It also is dependent on the season of the year. It also takes into account new features which are introduced in the product. So what happens? It becomes very vital that the target profile is defined very specifically and adjusted to. And now the situations for every advertising campaign, even if it is for the same brand over the years. What happens? This will help the marketing or the advertising team to perceive the target as a real person, as a real entity. This is the person who will actually buy the advertised product, and a nameless, faceless mass of people who are expected to move millions of soap bars, for example, right? When we considered the demographic profiles, it includes the age of the target audience, the gender, what kind of education that target person is possessing, what is the profession of that person, what kind of income that person has, and what kind of disposable income that person has, what is the marital status of that person, right? What is the family size of that person, the targeted person? Where is that household located? What kind of language or religion, race or culture, or to which ethnic group he belongs to? Right? What is the family size and the social status of that person? Another is psychographic profile. When we talk about psychographic profile, it includes factors like lifestyle. It is an important factor for an advertiser to decide on the advertising budget. What is the taste of the target audience in reading or music or clothes? What are the kind of business or holiday travel budgets that the individuals set in for themselves? What kind of social or sports and leisure activities are being undertaken by them are also considered when a target consumer is taken care of. What are the hobbies that the target consumer has? What is the community lifestyle? When we talk about the purchasing pattern, it refers to the kind of brand loyals or brand switchers. How often that particular person buys the product category, and who makes the buying decision? It is the husband or the wife or the children who are the major decision makers. Now, who becomes the influencer, right? What are the target audience attitude to the product and brand? And how does he use the advertised product? Is a common consideration. When we talk about what influences him the most, it is the personal recommendation, like the peer or the critics, the salesmen or the family, right? When we talk about advertising, which media of advertising and what kind of merchandising is being supported? When we talk about media mix consideration, so the success of an advertising campaign is basically it depends as much on campaign strategy, creative work, and an ad spend as on the media mix which is created by the media professional. India is a very big country. So making the cost of reaching the whole country is phenomenal exercise. Therefore, each advertising campaign, therefore, analyzing the number of media, the insertion, the frequency, and the duration needs to be decided very carefully to achieve the maximum impact within the budgets which are specified, right? When we talk about the objectives of the campaign, here the advertiser, he needs to make it very clear to the advertising agency exactly what his expectations are from him, and he must clearly specify to prevent the usual dissatisfaction on either or both the sides later on. Now, when we talk about advertising objectives of the campaign, it is to increase the brand awareness. Yes, the brand is already there, people are using unknowingly which brand they are using. Another is to enhance the brand image, right? The next one is to introduce new features or improved version so as to curb the competition which is still prevailing and increasing in the market. Another objective of any advertising campaign is to increase sales. So, if a product is produced, the advertising act as a pusher to increase the sales of the product. When we talk about increase in profits, how advertising increase in profits, since it's increasing the sales, so the per unit, when the per unit and every unit increase in every unit sales, the increase in the profits also. Increase in the market share. When a product is advertised extensively, it becomes reachable to a segment which was earlier not catered to. So it increased the market share and expand geographical market. It also helps in creating a good corporate image. Furthermore, it helps in curbing the damage controls and attracting the best professionals, and it helps in announcing uh, the new outlets that are there. So when we say typical spending power, there are very vital part of predicting the expected volume of business. Yes, there, which is very unfortunate that there is very little official data which is available, and India is still debating how to define the financial capacity of consumer. The consumers are divided into very poor, poor, lower middle class, upper middle class, rich and very rich. So when we say there are the first two categories, they have their daily needs. They do not buy actually many things, and very few of them are manufactured or branded products when we talk. So, which is the area of advertising? When we talk about the rich and the very rich people, they spend hugely, but very few units of the produced branded products compared to the immense wealth. So the luxury products which are sold to them through niche marketing and not mass marketing, it is to be considered. Therefore, the rich too are not the focus of advertising. It is the huge bulge of single mindedly acquisition and upward moving middle class in the middle that is the real target of mass advertising, right? The definition of below the poverty line, when we say, which for the advertising fraternity means not a target at all, it swings between 48% and 21% of the total population, which is a huge in absolute number, right? The interesting part here is that the bottom of the pyramid is so huge that if even a fraction of the percentage of this segment rises above the poverty line, they start buying goods in a small way, which are advertised. One must understand the spending pattern of consumer is needed to figure out the market potential of each geographical area, right? When we talk about the typical spending pattern, so there are quarterly interview surveys, and another is weekly diary survey. When we talk about quarterly interview survey, here each consumer unit is interviewed every 3 months over 5 calendar years or 5 calendar quarters. In the initial interview, information is collected on demographic data and the family characteristics, and the family unit's inventory of major durable goods. The interview survey also includes hundred of detailed questions about many items of purchases and is designed to obtain data on the types of expenditures respondents can recall for a period of 3 months or longer. This includes property, automobile, major consumer durable goods, and those that occur on a regular basis. When we talk about weekly diary survey, so in this survey, the respondents are asked to write down all their purchases made every day for 2 1 week periods in a special diary provided to them. This survey is designed to record data on frequently purchased smaller item of daily living, including food, transport, tobacco, non-prescription medication, etc. When we talk about budgeting method, the first method is historical method. So some companies, due to their intellectual laziness or lack of enterprise, they may not wish to go into deep into how the advertising budget works, or they may be turned off by the sheer complexity of the procedures. They keep spending what they always did year after year. Merely inflation adjusted are there with similar indifferences to the budget allocation, to different media and all that it involves, right? But this kind of a situation is very suicidal in nature. We talk about arbitrary method. Here what happens, especially in the proprietary company, the owner decides the budget depending on his personal judgment and experience. It is also used when a new product is launched, when there is no immediate increase in sales is expected, or reason of advertising is not directly linked to sales. It is basically and very ordinarily not recommended. When we talk about empirical research method, here the advertiser tries a series of different ad spends in different market or areas and experimentally arrives at the optimum level of expenditure. Data based response function or geographical curve. This relates to ad spends to sales, and this helps to decide how much spending will maximize sales and at what level it does. Another is decision calculus method. Here some company, what they do, they just rely on the experience and uh, judgment of the brand managers. It may work in very small companies with very few products, but it can hardly be called scientific and is used less and less now. When we talk about economic marginal analysis, here a company should keep increasing incrementally the advertising budget so long as the revenue generated keeps growing marginally ahead of it. When we talk about percentage of sales or gross turnover method, it happens especially in case of FMCG companies. Here merely allot a certain percentage of sales volume or that of the projected sales figure for the next year. While this method has simplicity and security of having a certain amount of money available to the advertising, it has the comfort of not demanding a complex database or perspective thinking. The next is all you can afford. When we talk about all you can afford, is applicable to small companies or the ones with limited budgets. They sometimes allocate all the money they needed for other marketing functions, which are unavoidable and inelastic, right? Another is all available funds method. Sometimes what happen, a young aggressive company with a new or promising brand or a product will go all out and spend every bit of their money they can find on advertising in the hope that it will create a quick awareness. When we talk about market share methods, so in a competitive market, there is usually some correlation between a brand's share of the market and its share of advertising in that particular product category. We also discuss parity with competitors method. So this method basically assumes that every competing company is spending what is optimal for them, and not only to hold their market share but also keep growing, right? So therefore spending is similar amount, that would be just fine. Another is quantitative mathematical method. Here it uses computer based model in which a number of clients, products and services are tracked. The computer stimulated model factors in all variables and give a statistical solution. When we talk about unit sales method, so according to this method, a percentage of the price of each unit is allocated for advertising. Lastly is objective and task method. This is a more effective and a result oriented method which is used by majority of the advertiser. They first set an objective for the advertising, like it can be increase in sales or creating awareness, taking away the market share or creating corporate equity. Then the total cost of achieving this objective becomes the budget, obviously with reasons. When we say role of experimentation, so uh, there is an imbalance between the amount of laboratory experimentation on advertising effectiveness and the amount which is done in the field, right? So laboratory expenditures or experiments, they are more likely to come up with significant differences that lend themselves to meaningful experimentations which can be translated into the real action. However, there is an aspect of advertising whose effectiveness lends itself to extremely profitable research with a payout that this is much more immediate than any comparison of media used. When we talk about decision support system, so decision support system is a very interactive computer based system which utilizes data and models for facilitating decision makers to solve semi structured and unstructured problem. So it assists managers in decision making, it supports rather than replaces managerial judgment, and it improves the quality and results of decision making. There are certain types of decision support system. One is analysis information system, data analysis system, accounting models, representation models or optimization models, and suggestion models. When we talk about the benefits of DSS, it helps in increasing the number of alternatives. Secondly, it is better understanding to the business unit. It helps in improving the communication across the organization, and it helps in better decision making with a optimal time. There are two exercises. What are the various types of budgeting methods and who is the targeted consumer? Thank you and have a nice day. Keep learning and we learning.